Welcome to the Angler Action Conservation Report this week. We're going to talk about the shark population and how bad it's getting if you feel that way. But if we've got any questions out there, we're going to ask you guys to please ask us anything you want to ask for. But let's start with Danny. You want to start on how you feel about the shark population out there?
I really don't have an issue with them because I don't catch them like you do all the time. You want to catch sharks, go on a kingfish trip with Andy. You want to catch sharks, you go on a mutton fish with Andy. I mean, there's more. I've seen more sharks inshore and offshore in the last 2 years. This year especially, more sharks inshore I've seen. I don't know what happened, if there's an explosion in the population going on or what's causing it, but it's all I hear is bad. I mean, people losing fish. You got all these anglers spending all this money to go out there, and you're hooking up with these beautiful fish, and you get that thing up to the boat, and you come in with a fish head. You know, in Jupiter Inlet this week, matter of fact, Pete Schultz from Fishing Headquarters showed me a photo last weekend. You know, he goes, wow, look at this beautiful snook, and I cringed because there was only this much of it. Well, that's a big head for a snook. This thing probably weighed 25, 30 pounds. And he went right up to the boat, and out of nowhere come an 8-foot bull shark, and it crushed it. The sharks are here. It's their ocean. We live up here, they live out there. Well, you know, it's like, you can't kill them, can you?
No, this is something we have to talk about.
If you
What do you
let
think
them.
about that? What is your
They just
thoughts
have
on
the
this?
shark tournaments.
Well, it's a situation where there's clearly something's happening where there's a change in the balance. Either there's less game fish and there's more sharks, or the sharks are behaving differently than they used to. Yes, sharks have been here for a long time. But anecdotally, you see more and more reports of anglers getting bit off and having to run away and leave sharks. There's a lot of reasons that could be happening. Maybe it's the divers that are hand feeding sharks. Maybe there's, you know, if you remember 4 or 5 years ago, there was a time when FWC tried to pass a rule that said you could not kill any shark under something ridiculous like 96 inches. I mean, there would never be a black-tip shark or spinner shark harvested ever again if that was to go through. And when that stuff happens, it's usually predicated from, first of all, an imbalance in what's going on off in the waters.
Food chain?
Yeah. And then a misunderstanding from at least one group of people, whether it's the people that are more based on environmental type sides, where they're preservationists that don't understand fishing at all, or whether it's commercial fishermen or shark fishermen or recreational fishermen, and then you have the people that have to make the decisions on how we regulate these fish. So whenever you have an imbalance of understanding, that's almost just as bad as when you have an imbalance in the water. So really what it means is we have to try to figure out what's happening out there, because if there's a trend that's changing and the shark population is being more of a nuisance, we need to find out why that is so we can figure out how to solve that issue.
And I got a couple theories. I know one of my theories is the way the currents are changing, where you have your upwellings and the warm waters clashing, and it's causing these sharks to actually stay stagnant here instead of migrating like they should be. If you get into the research, if you go, I mean, the seesaw effect is something that you could read up on, and it has a lot to do with the way the currents are changing in our with the global warming, of course, if that's the way you want to label it. But that has a lot to do with, I have a feeling that has a lot to do with the way these sharks are acting right now. And they're staying, holding the ground with the warm currents that are here and avoiding the updwellings that are coming from the north.
Is there a particular species that you're thinking of?
I think there's a lot of sharks. I think there's a lot of sharks in that equation there. That's why you see a lot of
Predominantly bull sharks.
That's why you're starting to see gray whites show up over here. I mean, I have a feeling that cold water from the if you got to read up on honestly on the seesaw effect, on the way the currents are, and if you look at the way the Arctic is melting, it's taking that cold water and holding these sharks down here in this warmer water. And I just say over time, you'll see, I don't know, it's good to get the data from the north and see if their shark population up north is kind of like decreasing, or they're not catching as many. I'm curious to see what kind of data we get from
Well,
that.
satellite tagging bull sharks in Palm Beach is not as sexy as tagging white
Oh,
sharks.
I get it.
It's expensive, so it'd be tough to.
And I don't think bull
get some of
sharks,
that
I
stuff,
don't
but-
think bull sharks is probably the higher migratory species as like you would say the hammerheads or the some of the you know.
But as they spawn, see, here's the thing that gets me, it's like, it used to be, you know, every now and then you're gonna get sharked, or you're gonna hook into a shark, you're out there fishing. But it's like now, it's 5 and 10 sharks come to the boat before these guys are shutting their engines down. And I mean, I'm sitting in front of a fishing club full of anglers, and they're all going like this.
No, and it's true, it's true.
And it's just, it's like they become accustomed. It's almost like they know. It's like a dog, you know. You start stray cats. You start feeding the stray cats, they're going to start coming around more and more and more. If these fish are catching on to it, at the same time, I wonder myself if there is a population, if they're just blowing up and just breeding and breeding and breeding, where it's happening a lot quicker for some reason, like Andy's saying. I don't know the reasons of it because I'm just a guy that fishes. But back to the great whites. There's always been great whites out here. They have always been out here. And you can get with these old commercial boys from around here. The majority of them that have shark fished, commercial shark fishing in this area, in Palm Beach County, Martin County, Broward County, throughout history, a lot of these guys have got one hanging on their wall. I know a guy who used to shark fish out of Boynton. He's got about a 500-pound great white on his wall at home, and he goes, "We got that shark on one night off Palm Beach." So, I mean, they're here. And it's the cause part. We're baffled about why does it just seem like there's so many of them. And I'm like, maybe they're tired of eating the grunts on the reef. They'd rather eat a wahoo.
I mean, there's other factors here, you gotta remember, there's no market for shark. I mean, there are absolutely no market
And
for
you
shark.
brought that up quite often. That's another thing. Now that they've taken, if I'm correct, sharks off the commercial harvest in this area. I don't know if we're allowed to commercial shark fish here or not. off
No,
these
they
coasts.
brought it back. They brought it back, and the problem with what happened was when they brought it back, these guys were saying, okay, well, let's go shark fishing. Well, what happened was they brought it to the market. The market was
There's no market. If the market doesn't want to buy the supply and demand, if they got nowhere to sell it, they're not going to buy it. Why kill it?
Right.
If you're not, because it's like we're the humans. We thin the herd. We've always, it's this ecological thing. We take, Mother Nature replenishes, right? Ain't that kind of how it works? And it's like, it's one of those.
Now listen, most sharks aren't bad eating. I mean they're edible. I'm not saying they're great. I'm not saying they're like wahoo or dolphin or tuna for that matter. But the reality of it is they're edible. They're great for and they can be used for a lot of other things too as well.
Especially in China.
Especially well, we're talking the fins. There is a high market for the fins, but unfortunately,
That's something I'm completely, the finning, that's a whole other I'm against there. That just
that's
doesn't,
not right. That's
it's a
not
waste of resource.
That is
But if you don't have a market for it, nobody's buying this stuff, commercial guy, I'm not gonna go out there and spend all this money, and he's laying out all these shark lines on the bottom to catch fish that he can't sell, so it's like, okay, there's one we're gonna leave alone. Well, you leave the sharks alone long enough, and then they're gonna do their thing, and then when we get into these debates like this, I think of you because I always think the forage fish. Is there an issue out on our reef systems here in Palm Beach County, Martin County, and Broward, to where there's having an issue with food out there, and maybe that's why it's like, look, we're gonna come up and eat every free dinner that we can, because maybe there's not enough out there right now for them to keep a good plenishment going.
Well, the reality of it is not just because they're not even. I mean, if they're not fully trained now, they will be fully trained in the near future, because right now, it's just, they just, like you said, they come to the boat, they're accustomed to it, they know it's a free meal pretty much 90% of the time, people fishing off the boat. So, it's only gonna get worse, I know for a fact it's only gonna get worse.
Well,
And
there's
until something
a
gets
two-edged sword to an increased shark population, and this is a situation where both sides of that sword cut in a bad way, because you have an issue where you hit it earlier that fishing forums, which is where a lot of us fishermen communicate with each other. If the rhetoric I've noticed is increasing that the sharks are getting out of hand and people start throwing out theories, but we don't know what's going on. And at the same time, there's folks out there, and I'm not singling out any anti-fishing groups in particular, but any leverage they can get to try to deny access to fishermen. And if it seems like what we've done is, it'll become our fault if we're not careful. So really, the onus is on us to try to understand what's happening, so we can get the story right, and we can tell the story correctly, and we can try to solve it correctly without eliminating anglers' access if that's the way to get it done.
The whole thing is though, it's not like I'm a recreational angler. 90% of the guys in this room right now that fish, they're recreational anglers. We don't go out to catch shark and kill shark. It's like you catch a mako when you're out sword fishing, And the next time you ever get one, it might want a piece of it, because I heard it's excellent eating.
It is.
You know, it's fabulous table fare. But that's
Very,
real
very
deep water fish. On the reefs, something's going on, man, because I mean, they're there, even me, I noticed it.
And let me explain the species of shark that are really the problem. It's the bull shark and oh,
The black tip reef sharks?
no, what's the other one? The
Sandbar.
Sandbar, thank you.
Sandbars?
Yeah, the sandbar sharks are, and
Very
the
common.
bull shark. And you know what, the funny thing is, the bull shark is legal to keep, but the sandbar is.
And
you
the
can't keep
sandbar
the sandbar.
shark was the shark that used to be targeted by the commercial fishermen, and there was a good market for it, and why, I'm one of these guys that goes, whatever happened to the, hey, we wanna buy sandbar sharks? Well, then maybe they'll let us catch more of them and thin the herd.
But they don't, you're not even allowed to catch a sandbar.
Exactly, so that's
You
another
can, you can
one,
kill a bull shark, but you can't kill a sandbar. And there's more sandbars out there than
which
there's bull
doesn't,
sharks.
you know what I mean? It kinda doesn't jive.
Can't kill the hammerhead.
Well, the
Well, the
hammerheads,
hammerheads, that's a whole nother-
that's a whole different ballgame. The hammerheads aren't the problem out here. It's the sandbars, and, I mean, you get a hammerhead's always been around, but the hammerheads don't breed like these other sharks. And they're hammerheads aren't that,
You get around the hammerhead sharks, you're gonna be around the big kingfish.
Yeah,
I'll throw that one out there for you. You find the hammerheads, you're gonna find the big kingfish.
well, we're open to questions right now, so if anybody wants to ask any questions or any theories or whatever you guys
I
want to talk
just
about.
have a
so-
comment.
Sure.
I owned an incidental shark permit. I commercial fished almost all my life. I'm just about done doing it. I'm guide fishing now.
Mhm.
But when they would open the season, used to be July 1st, they would open it up, so we have all these sharks. Within a week, no more sharks. No more sharks.
And then the next year, the sharks were back, right? I mean, it
Fish
was like,
500 hooks, whatever. And I remember a little 26-foot Stapleton, Jimmy Cadle. I used to supply him bonitas, and he gave me some nice shark jaws. He'd almost sink that boat for opening day. Almost sink it with sharks.
What years in?
Well, this is in the 70, 80, 90s, after 2000
Mhm.
but see,
also, early
if
part.
I can touch on that real quick, they would go out and do this, and you think, oh, they wiped out all the sharks. The next year, they do it all over again, they're right back. It's
Yeah,
like
but
Mother
not like
Nature.
we have now, not to this extent.
No, but what I'm saying is when you do have that
That's
commercial
true.
industry that is allowed to harvest them and
Keep
market
it in
them,
check.
people think, oh, you're gonna, it's almost the commercial mentality that most anglers think, recreational, oh, they're gonna kill everything. No, what I'm saying is, they would go out, and they would harvest that catch of sharks, they'd sell them sharks. And I'm talking a bunch of sharks, and you think, well, they're gonna wipe them out. The next year, that population is right back to where it was the year before, and they do it all over again. But now that they've taken the regulations, made everything so strict, there's no market for it, you're stuck with
Yeah.
cutoff.
Plus, we
you know?
don't kill the sharks anymore, like the Lake Worth JCs.
Correct, and then the old
With the
Singer
headlands.
Island, years ago, when I was a kid, the shark tournaments. The sharks would get out of control, they would literally have tournaments and say, we're gonna kill 200 or 300 of them here, have a big tournament, take the money and give it to a good organization, bury the fish, come back, pick up all the jaws later, the guys who caught the fish would sell the jaws. But the money that they used for these tournaments, they would donate to a charity or something on the order of that. So there was money going to good causes from it, and then the next year, they right back, here it is again, they're right back to their normal,
In the
status.
60s, they actually had a bounty on sharks.
Right. And then it,
A bounty.
Bounty, yeah. Now, what do you suggest a resolution would be?
Develop a market if you want to do something positive to help some of these starving commercial fishermen, literally, some of them. Some are doing okay, but most of them
Most
aren't.
of them are starving, I agree. And it's
It's
because of the
developing
sharks.
at the state level, because they put a lot of money into research and development. Find a way to market these sharks, have openings, and let them go in and harvest their 1,000 sharks or whatever the number is.
Right, I agree.
And they make money on it, and we're happy, they're
And
happy.
I'm sure
The
dogs,
state's happy, because they'll do research on the dead sharks.
Mhm.
and I'm sure cat food and companies and dog food companies will, I don't know about dog, but I know cat food companies will,
I have
there's
no
gotta be a
idea.
market for that.
And the Chinese.
I don't know, but I do know
That's two
this.
Chinese gigs so far, but
There was,
anyway.
no names mentioned, another incidental shark permit holder. Towards the end of this, when it was winding down, so maybe 6, 7 years ago, 5 years ago, he landed 2 of the biggest tiger sharks I think I've ever seen locally. I mean, they were like 10, 12
We're
foot.
talking locally, Jupiter, Palm Beach.
I'm talking
that-
Jupiter Inlet, and I'm
Okay.
not gonna mention his name.
Okay, no, that's okay.
No, that's fine.
He was within the letter of the law, he was perfectly legal. And he brought these big tigers in, and he had other sharks too, incidental shark permit. And I go, wow, what are you gonna do with them? And he goes, believe it or not, I can legally fen them, and I'm taking them back offshore. And he had a door, you know, the tuna door,
Mhm.
opened the door and he slid them out.
Well, he was going by the law, going by,
That's
if
what
you're
it was.
going by the
You
word
bring
of
them
the
to the
law,
dock,
you
you
can't.
documented it,
Mhm.
and they didn't want them, but you were allowed to take the fins, and now that's all changed.
See, I wonder if you could take and say you could go out and do you know, one a month or something like that for your average recreational angler, get them tagged. And say, go out and get your one and donate it to these places where they donate the deer meat. To these people that can't afford to
Yes.
buy their own food and stuff, cut it up, package it up. Here you
Well,
go,
Lion
here's a
Country
bunch of fish.
Safari, I'm sure Lion Country Safari will take all the shark, you know, the shark meat, you know.
No,
Or
they
Billy
won't.
Swamp.
They won't.
What about Billy
No,
Swamp?
the Lake Worth JCs years ago did that, and Lion Country Safari was fairly new then. They took, I don't even remember how many sharks, a lot of sharks, flatbedded them out, and again, they probably weren't taken care of. And the lions didn't really want them, and they didn't want, they got stink, you
You
know.
wouldn't either if you've been eating filet mignon every day for 2 years.
No, they tried that years
They tried
ago,
that, huh?
yeah, if you ask any of the
Well,
old
go to
timers.
Broward and try Billy Swamp on the Indian reservation. They're probably hungrier.
But you know something, Danny, you have a point that with, as a guide, if it's like the Frank Mundus thing, he targeted sharks,
Mhm.
Montauk.
Mhm.
If we harvest and kill the shark and had something to do with it, you get a dozen guides, 2 dozen guides doing that. You removed a lot of sharks, even if you only took one. Think about it.
Even if you, like I said, you know, the recreational angler, each license, here's one tag, well, then, you know, that's hundreds of thousands of tags. But I'm sure there's something that could be done with FWC, and if they work through the numbers and went, well, here's about what we got, what they think that they have for, you know, a shark population off this area of the coastline, and say, all right, you know, you can go out and let this young kid from here go out and pop him a 9-foot bull shark, he's all happy about it, gets to keep the jaws, and every bit of it goes to good use, you know, as long as there's somewhere you can donate it
As long as
to,
it's used to.
and it gets used, if it's gonna be wasted, you know, that's even the finning thing, even if you can legally do it, I just see a whole core of a fish being dumped in the ocean, I'm like, to me, that ain't, you know, it's just.
Well, Mike, we talked about it with Mike and Devin and everybody else, so there's also the option of actually having a shark tournament. Now they do it up north, and I know that's gonna bring a lot of negative reactions to some of these anti-activist groups there. But that could be a good way
A
to.
kill tournament?
Yeah, oh yeah, we've been throwing this idea around, look, they do it in Montauk, why can't
I
we do it
won the
here?
Lake Worth JCs one year. I'm just telling you that there's the PETA,
PETA's on-
the bugs and bunny people, you know, whatever they are, you know, the tree huggers, they're gonna scream.
Right, but what
That's why
about,
they stopped years
Let them
ago.
scream, as long as it's done by the book and everything's done legally, scream all you want.
So
why do they do it up north, they do it up north in New York?
I know that, but we used to do it here, and we used to kill the sharks, bring them into the dock, weigh them in, even, what was it, Marks Paving, David Marks and his brother, they used to have shark tournaments.
Brett,
Same
you had-
time.
You were gonna say something.
Well, this is not a short-term solution, you know, it's something, and, you know, the way that the state rate, you'd have to have the state FWC buy into something like that, because you'd have to have some kind of exempted permit. It doesn't make it impossible, and what it means is that already I go to all the commission meetings, and people show up. I would say every other commission meeting, somebody that goes up to just give comment will mention the exploding shark population in their area. So it's not that it's never discussed or brought up to them, but that's kind of the first step. And in the way, if you've never been to a commission meeting, the way these things work is there's the commissioners that sit up, kind of like you guys, and you run the show, and then the staff is out in the crowd, or you know they're there, but They give their presentation, public comment is given, and the commission tells the staff, they direct them what to do. Study the shark population, give us an idea what's happening in this area, and then they'll go out and they'll figure out to do some kind of stock assessment or trending data survey. They'll get a handle on it, then they'll come back and say, this is what we found and here's a few options. And they'll have a preferred option. We could, it does seem there's an imbalance, we could do something about it through options A, B, or C. And then the commissioners, then they'll take public comment, and that's where it gets tough. You've got to try to control the message, and you've got to try to come in without it being led by emotion. If you can do that and talk about what's actually happening in as much of a factual way as you can, that's where you start to make some sense and have some leverage, and that's where you can move the dial and have things done. It's the emotional aspect of what you have to deal with in these situations, and unfortunately, it's a big driver.
You know what started the shark kill tournaments in the 70s, late 60s and 70s? Kid by the last name of Samples was mauled at the pump house, and then the tournaments came on strong.
Yeah, I
And
remember
I hate
all
to say
that.
that, but it's always rule by disaster.
Yeah, and I can see it coming.
Rule by disaster. If someone gets really hurt, and the PETA people, whoever they are, the environmentalists,
Yeah.
they're going to fight and say it's all
The man,
part of it.
we're gonna have to wrap this up real quick here in a minute. I think like commenting to FWC, go online, FWC.com. You can send comments in and just say, hey, I think the more people that started sending comments in saying, what is up with this shark situation here, in southeast Florida, Palm Beach County, Martin County, we're just inundated every time we go fishing. We sharks.
Mm-hmm.
You think if more people kind of started throwing that out there, they might say, hey, maybe this is something we should look into, or.
I can tell you that that's how it works, because my foundation's been collecting data for FWC mostly for inshore fish, but it's expanded.
Mhm.
And they've called me out of the blue. Someone from staff has called me and said, we're getting a lot of calls about sea trout population in Southwest Florida.
Mhm.
Send us all your data for Collier, Monroe County. We need to see what people are catching down there. So I know that they respond to those things and they investigate it. And
So
go from there.
the thing to do, guys, is go to FWC.com and just go look in there to the comment section. Comment to the commissioners about your shark fishing situations. If you think there's something, just say, look, we got a situation here. That would be the thing to do. The best thing you can do right now as far as your fisheries is log your fish on iAngler or go to angleraction.org. Online on your laptop or computer at home. iAngler, you can upload the app into your phone, and you'll freak out on it. Brett, it's the best thing since sliced bread as far as I'm concerned for fisheries.
He's actually gonna show a presentation here after we're done here, so, if you guys got any more questions before we close this segment out, please ask now or any comments.
Just if you are gonna keep any of those sharks that are legal, you still make sure you have the HMS permit. The ones that are legal
Yeah.
to harvest, make sure you have that permit.
That's correct, and we need to close this thing out, guys.
All right.